Hey, how's it going, guys? Matt from Code Tech and Tutorials here, and I just wanted to make a quick video, answer a comment question that I get every once in a while. Seems to keep popping up. Actually, I think I made a video on this a long time ago, but my view on it may have changed, so I'm just gonna do it again rather than reference a 2-year-old video. And the question is, I don't have it up in front of me, but it's something along the lines of, is the best way to learn how to code to go to college? Or would you recommend going to school to learn how to code? And maybe I get asked this because that's basically what I did when I decided I wanted to be a programmer. I signed up for computer science pretty much as soon as I could, because I did some research on the subject, and I found the answer that you've probably already found. That sure, you can learn it on your own, you can go take little side courses, you can follow tutorials, you can try to figure out stuff on your own. But the problem with that is, well, you might figure out some basics of some languages and stuff, but there's going to be a lot of knowledge gaps depending on what you're learning exactly. So the thing about taking computer science, well, it was also my position. Where I was at in my life at the time, I had already worked a lot of different jobs, but never any programming jobs. But once I kind of discovered that what I wanted to do was programming, I knew that I wanted to get a programming job, basically. So to transition from like a computer tech or like an IT technician, a desktop technician, which is basically what I was, did a lot of, just like troubleshooting software, figuring out what was wrong with computers, fixing the broken stuff or setups, and just a lot of stuff like that. And I basically made a career out of it, and it was not bad. And I was working at a university doing it. So imagine that. Imagine working at a university without having a university degree. That's the position I was put in. So it became a little odd at times when all of my colleagues had degrees. So anyone I would talk to, they would say, "Oh yeah, I already got a degree in this. I got a degree in this," and I'd be like, I got nothing. I don't know how I ended up working for a school without actually going to school. But see, I went back to school after basically taking like a 10-year break off of school. Initially, right out of high school, I went to DeVry University, and DeVry University is one of those rush you through engineering schools that try to get you a 4-year degree in 3 years. And that sounded great because I was like, yeah, whatever. I guess I just want to be done. I was trying to just pick the best option, whatever sounded the best when I was young. But what I didn't realize is that I wasn't going to like it. I got into DeVry. I took a few semesters. I was feeling pretty miserable about the courses overall and about the content. I went from computer engineering to computer science. We were programming in Java. I had some cool classes, but overall, I just wasn't feeling it at the time. I didn't really understand programming or why I would need to do it at the time. I didn't find out for myself that I wanted to be a programmer at the time. I really had no idea. So I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels at school, and it was also very expensive. DeVry is pretty expensive. I guess all schools are, really. But I didn't have the financial backing to keep paying for these semesters, and just seeing all this debt rack up, I was like, enough's enough. I quit. I'm just gonna go work. So I did that, and I was a technician for years. But growing up, I really liked video games, and I always thought, hey, I want to make my own game. I had been doing it with paper. I'd played a lot of strategy games. I'd played a lot of competitive fighting games. I played Magic the Gathering semi-competitively. I had a very strategic mind and a very calculating mind, and that's like exactly what you want as a programmer. But I didn't really realize that, and I was sort of stuck. I was just kind of stuck with what I was handed. I wasn't all that motivated for a long time, and I was just like, okay, I'll just get the best job I can, kind of with what I got, and see where it goes, and just keep learning. And that was all going pretty good. Then one day, when I was 30, it just clicked. I almost want to say it was overnight. I was working at this job. I was answering phones all day. I was doing tech support, and it was really wearing on me. I had done it for about a year, a little over a year. And I was just so tired of answering phones, so tired of troubleshooting little basic computer issues. and it just wasn't satisfying my creative need. I really had this creative drive where I wanted to create something, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I tried being a musician. I was in a few different bands, did a lot of touring and playing, and that was pretty satisfying, but it didn't. I was joining other people's bands. I wasn't really writing a whole lot. I was mostly just kind of filling in for whatever band I was joining. So that wasn't all that satisfying. So I just had this like artistic need to create something, and I was so in the computers. I was always on my computer. I was always doing stuff. I was always editing things. Got into music editing. Got into trying to make some games, and then very quickly learned that I don't understand how to do this programming thing. I got into cryptocurrency a lot, and I tried to make my own coin, and I was just like in over my head, like I don't know how to do this code thing. So it just clicked one day that if I really want to be this kind of creator that I keep trying to be, and if I really want to understand the hardware of these computers, I need to dig in, and did some research. And one of the best things that I found was basically, look, if you want a well-rounded core knowledge about how computers work, you should go for computer engineering or computer science. And since I was more angled towards programming rather than the engineering of the little electronics inside a computer, I picked computer science. Now, computer science does cover a lot of the electronics side, but it sort of focuses also on how the software interacts with it. So I basically wanted to fill in as many gaps as possible. And while I knew that I could go online and I could kind of figure some things out, I could tell that I would be missing a lot of things. And it turns out I was right. I got to my very first class when my college started, and I was the oldest person in there. Imagine starting as a freshman, basically, at a university known for young kids going in. So I was like a 30-year-old in this class, and there's a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, and I felt really old. But looking back, I'm so glad I did it. And actually, I don't think anybody realized my age. I think most people thought I was like 24 or something, because I just tend to have a young look. Yeah, that's just something I've always had. I guess going for me. I don't know if it really means a whole lot, but people always think I'm younger than I am. So I kind of fit in okay with most of the students. I made friends decently easy, but honestly, I wasn't really trying to make friends. At that point in my life, I was like, look, I'm going to college. I'm paying for it out of my own pocket. I don't want any debt out of this. I just want the knowledge. So I was there to get stuff done. I wasn't there to make friends. I wasn't there to party. I didn't really try to interact with that crowd very much. But luckily, a lot of the other kids in computer science, they were kind of grouped. There were definitely some kids that were in it for the computer science, and those were the ones I liked. Kids you could tell were smart and were actually trying to learn this stuff too. And then there was actually quite a large group. I would say the vast majority that didn't give a crap about school or knowledge or anything. They were just kind of there to appease their parents or something, and they would put off every bit of work and just party instead. And I guess I did my fair share of procrastination, but ultimately I didn't agree with that style at the time. Back when I was at DeVry, that's what I wanted to do. I basically wanted to party and hang out, and that wasn't happening at DeVry, so it was another one of the reasons I couldn't stay there. Sure, a lot of stuff happened in between. I'm cutting like a ton of this story, a ton of my experience, but yeah, that's basically it. I just kind of came to the conclusion that I wanted a well-rounded knowledge, and the knowledge about computers, the science, and programming. So yeah, one of my first classes was Intro to Computer Science. It was C++ class, and I loved it. I did pretty well in it. It was my first real study of a language, and it was C++. So that's kind of where my love for C++ started. Just kind of seeing it and realizing that you can do anything with this, like, blew my mind. I was like, you can do anything? I can just edit the memory, and just learning about the memory and how it all lines up and how the variables are certain memory sizes. It was just absolutely fascinating to me. Apparently I was sort of alone in that, because about halfway through the semester I observed that about half the kids weren't showing up anymore. So only about half of that class even kept going, which at the time blew my mind. I was like, how could you not love this? This is like one of the most amazing things I've ever signed up for. It was just, it was like getting a key to unlock my dreams. That's kind of what it felt like going to that class. And as I kept taking computer science classes, it was 4 years, 8 semesters in a row. Basically, I went, and it was brutal. It was full time. I had full time work and full time school going on for about 4 years straight. Now, at the end of my school, I did quit my job so I could focus full time on my last year and a half, because it was getting difficult, and I was very concerned that I might start failing courses. I was getting burnt out. I was running out of time. I was barely able to get stuff done just with my schedule. I also had a kid at the time, a new kid, so that was taking up time too. So I made the decision to dip into my savings a little bit to invest in my future and say, look, I'm gonna quit work. I'm gonna finish my school, do the best I can, learn all I can, and then go from there. And that's what I did. A lot of computer science courses, a lot of English courses, a lot of math courses, chemistry, psychology, a bunch of other courses. So that's the thing. Sure, you can learn how to code, and you can learn the basics of computer science by researching online, but you don't really get that great of a path. You get someone's idea of a path, but a curriculum from a school, it's been well studied. It's like it's a well studied curriculum. It's what it's kind of what they set up for you to succeed. Like, yeah, you gotta be good at public speaking at a job. You got to be good at writing. You got to know all the basics of this stuff if you don't want to look like a fool at your job. Being good at computer science is great, but also being good at dealing with people and having a kind of a wide, just having all your generals class, like understanding the basic psychology of people, was rather important too. I also had I've had a pretty big interest in psychology too. Never really went to school for that, but I've always studied psychology on my own. I'm always fascinated by psychological studies. And so maybe that was a bit of a part of it too, because it was kind of something you could, I don't know. It was just interesting in a weird way. It felt like it was like the programming of the human mind or something. It was very abstract, but it was something I really enjoyed. So yeah, when I went to school, I very specifically thought, look, I want to be a programmer. I want to make games. I want to write the functions behind the games that control how things work together. That's what I thought. But I really signed up for a lot more than that, because while I got that, I also got a lot of other lessons, life lessons. Just going through all the projects made a big difference. Like, that 4 years of my life ramped me up a lot, and it really set me on the right path to start doing good things. Like, right out of school, I got a job at a research company, and it was going great. I was doing the back end code of C++ stuff, and I was in over my head, to be honest. But they seemed to like me there. I was able to get some new features in with the code, and boy, was that hard. Like, that was one of the most challenging jobs. And I was really, I was surprised they hired me, because, it was like, it wasn't my first dev job. I had a dev job while I was in school too, so, but it wasn't that structured. So this was like my first real dev job right out of school, and yeah, it went pretty well. Ultimately, it was a job that was pretty far away from home, so it was interesting doing that dynamic. And that's actually where I recorded a lot of my early videos, just driving back and forth from that job, because it was like just long open road of nothing going on. It was really boring. So sometimes I would just get thoughts churning, and I just hit record and make a video. And then I would make videos on my break just to get out of the office. But it was just such a great experience overall, just getting in there, trying to figure out their code base, and just getting to actually practice GitHub and stuff like that. Now, while I was in school, the one thing I was not very satisfied with was the lack of long-term projects. It was like, oh, here's a little thing you got to do. You got a week, and then once you do it, you got nothing left to do. They don't assign you anything else. You don't have to code or study code anymore. So I started taking it upon myself to come up with my own projects to do in the downtime, because I wasn't really quite good enough to understand what was going on fully in other people's projects in GitHub. Like, I would look at someone else's project, think, sure, I'll try to work on this to see if I can learn some new things. And I would just get totally lost. So I was like, I guess I'm going to do my own thing. I mean, I know how to start a new program. I know how to add things. I know how to generally manipulate the data, but the way other people are structuring their code, I don't understand this. And maybe they're doing it the industry standard way, but I was learning from the ground up. So I didn't understand the industry standard for a long time, but doing my own projects and just keeping at it and looking at other people's code, and then eventually learning libraries more properly. Because before it was just like, okay, I'll walk through and add the library, but I don't understand what's actually going on. Eventually I began to understand that. And you'll see that now in some of my videos. I'm always talking about libraries because I find it just absolutely, it's just awesome being able to make something and then use it in any of your projects in the future without having to code it all up again. So I just love that about C++, that you can just build your own libraries, and then when you come up with new ideas, you can just like modularly pop your parts in. Now I made this program called DMpower. I started making it when I was in school, and it started to gain a little popularity. It's just a program for D&D. I was playing a lot of D&D with some friends, so I was getting very annoyed with having to look up stuff in the books all the time. So I just decided, hey, I'll just write a program that does all this. And I did. It's on GitHub. It's called DMpower. I don't know, every once in a while it gets a new star. I think it's got like 56 stars, but that's not something I've ever really, in retrospect, it's terrible code. I was only coding for about a year when I started that project, and I went through just a lot of trying to figure out things and learning new things with that. And it really, just writing that code base, it's like, I don't know how many lines of code. I want to say it's 50,000 lines of code at this point, but that's probably an exaggeration. I don't think it's that much, but it's a lot of lines of code. And that was all done in the downtime of my college. So when I didn't have projects assigned to me, I was working on that. So I was just always coding in C++. And by my third or fourth year, everyone was coming to me with their questions about C++ in school. They were like, hey, I'm stuck on this. Can you help me? And I'd look at it and be like, oh, just do this. Yeah, there you go. And so I became like the Stack Overflow for a lot of students that needed help. I guess not a lot of them. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging too much, but I felt like I was a bit ahead on the whole C++ realm compared to everybody else. And I was pretty new to it. I just learned it. My first experience with it was that first class, and I never really stopped. I really have a love for this language. You can just do anything with it. So it's kind of skewed my reality a little bit. Like I tried programming in JavaScript, and I just didn't get it. Like it didn't click to me. But then when I started learning about lambdas and C++ and getting into that, I was like, oh, Java's just a bunch of lambdas basically. So that kind of simplified it for me. But I don't really care to code in Java or JavaScript. I would rather. I did spend about a solid year studying the Java language and doing Android programming, and that was a pretty good experience. I have a couple apps, nothing super spectacular or anything, but I did do a social media one for school, my senior project, and got it connected to the internet, got chat rooms, got messaging, uploading, getting a lot of the social media functions were in there. So I kind of learned how to do all that on Android, and that helped me a lot because I learned a lot about releasing and getting on the Google Play Store and some of the things you got to do there. So that kind of opened up some new things for me too. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without school. I feel like I wouldn't quite have a wide enough knowledge base to do quite what I do now. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't feel like I'd have a whole lot of trouble getting most programming jobs. Sure, I'd probably have to do a few interviews, but eventually I'd get one of them. I don't really feel that nervous about it, For me, the problem is showing up. I just need to show up, basically, because I'm not all that motivated to do day jobs anymore. I'm really more motivated to do my own thing and do my own projects and do my own business. So that's what I do now. I quit that research job after about 3 or 4 months, and it wasn't really anything to do with the work. It was just the timing and the location of everything was not good for me. So I don't know if this is going to answer your question about whether you should go to school to learn code or not, but I will say that yeah, going to a traditional 4-year college for computer science will give you a lot of understanding about knowledge. You know, there's a set big there's a lot of computer science courses you have to go through, and it steps you through. You know, you get the beginner classes, you get a little more difficult, you get discrete math, you get parallel programming, and you get a bunch of other stuff. You get AI classes, and they're all 12 to 14 weeks each. So you get a nice chunk of time studying this one thing, and you're studying the actual science of it, the stuff we know, the stuff that's documented, the stuff that's in books. And, you know, you get rigorously tested on it in assignments. And it's really, I think, a good way to open up your knowledge if you don't have that. So I don't think it's a bad idea. The biggest thing is the money. Like it costs a lot of money to go to school. So you can either go into debt for it, or hopefully you have savings and can work it out every semester. My big thing was I didn't want to go into debt, but since I was working for the university, I was getting a decent paycheck. I was getting some put in savings for quite a while, every paycheck basically. So that helped. And then when I signed up for school, I could fill out some paperwork and say, hey, I work for the school, and they would pay for some of my tuition. Of course, that stopped happening when I quit the job to finish school, but you know, I had to make a choice. It would have took me like another year to finish if I didn't quit my job, basically. So I made the choice to quit my job and do school full time. Even though I took a bit of a hit financially, it saved me some time. So that was kind of the point of that. But yeah, I really had to plan it out financially. I basically had to plan the full 4 years, all the costs, all my expenses. I had to make sure I could pay for it. I was already like a ton in debt from that 10-year ago thing I did at DeVry that felt like a complete waste. So I was like, there's no way I'm taking any more debt. And once I figured out a way to not have to take any more debt, it was going to eat into my savings a little bit, especially once I quit. I didn't really plan on quitting work, but it just kind of happened because I was something had to give. It got to that point, and I think it was the right choice overall. I don't really have any regrets about that. But yeah, as soon as I was done with school, my bank account was drained. I took it right to the limit. Like, I barely paid off that last semester, so I didn't take any debt. That was a big thing for me, but it did eat like all my savings, but I was investing in myself, so it paid off. And I got a job right away that paid really well. And there were a lot of others that opened up for me, but I just couldn't do it. I'm really more into my own thing, doing my own business. And now I'm doing this channel on YouTube, and as far as I can see, it's going to continue. I have some really exciting videos coming up, so please, if you want to see more coding videos, more stuff about coding, consider subscribing to this channel. And my next one that I'm actually working on is all about coding up animations from scratch with C++, basically. And it's been a subject that I've been wanting to cover for a long time, but there's a lot of levels of it, and a lot of math you have to get perfect. So sure, I can do it all with libraries or with a game engine or stuff, but that doesn't, you know, I don't understand all the math if I do it that way. So that's one of the things that I kind of got ingrained after a while, is I want to know how things work from the ground up. I want to understand the tiny bits that most people just abstract away. Sure, I'd like to abstract them away, but I'd like to write the code that abstracts them away. So that's basically what I do here, is I just teach you what I learned, mostly from code. I guess most of my channel is actually blown up from my Blender tutorials, just because I've done a lot of video editing with Blender. I did a gaming channel for a while, and I had pretty much edited all my videos with Blender, so I got a lot of experience with that, and made some videos covering Blender as a video editor, and that kind of made my channel blow up. Blow up for me. It's not really blow up in terms of what most people call blow up. I'm not like Kardashian or something getting millions of views a day. It's not like that, but those videos get continuous views and they bring people in. I don't know, but really I made this to talk about code. Code's just way too niche to really gain mainstream. Well, I would say C++ code is a bit too niche to get a mainstream channel with, but it just depends on what you want to do. So hopefully that helps. That's, I kind of gave my story of why I personally went to college, and just needing that direction and wanting a well-rounded knowledge base, and you know, having that degree was nice because everyone else I worked with had one, and it just felt awkward after a while to not have one. And it made sense because I was getting a pretty big discount just because of my work and them paying for it. I don't really fully agree with going to college right after high school, to be honest, or, you know, that didn't work for me. That didn't feel right for me. I think people should take a year or two off, but also, you know, if you know, you know. So follow your own heart. Don't necessarily listen to me. If you want to go straight to school after high school, awesome. If not, I think that's fine too. And don't feel ashamed or whatever if your parents ragging on you. If you want to go out and get some real world experience, that is incredibly valuable too. That's another thing I observed when I was in school. I was miles ahead of all the students. Like, I knew the answers to almost every question except for those that involved incredibly technical mathy stuff, because I was like, well, I haven't ever studied that. But like all the general questions of how to handle business and how to run things, I kind of already knew all that just from all the work experience I had. And let's see what else happened. You know, I mentioned the cryptocurrency. I once had a Bitcoin farm. I think I mentioned that in another video once, but yeah, at one point I had a Bitcoin farm and I was tweaking that all the time, and that sort of got me interested in code too. I was playing World of Warcraft a lot. I got pretty into mods for a while. That sort of got me touching a lot of code too. So there were a lot of things that kind of led up to, I keep getting involved with code, but I don't quite have enough knowledge to really do a lot other than make very basic changes. So it just really, well, that's it. Hope this helps. Hope you have a good day. Peace out, everyone. Stay safe out there.